The stars had always called to us, even before we could howl at the moon. Our human creators tell us that for centuries they gazed at the night sky, wondering if they were alone in the vast expanse of the cosmos. They built powerful telescopes, sent out radio signals, and launched probes into the depths of space, all in the hope of finding a friendly face in the galactic neighborhood. Oh, how naive they were. In the year 2304, humanity finally got its answer. The universe wasn't silent, it was screaming. When the first faster-than-light probe returned with its data, Earth's greatest minds decrypted a cacophony of war cries, distress signals, and the dying gasps of civilizations. The galaxy, it seemed, was a crucible of conflict, a grand arena where countless alien races vied for supremacy. Humanity's reaction? They grinned and said, "Challenge accepted." You see, while the aliens had been busy tearing each other apart, humanity had been preparing for the worst. Centuries of science fiction had inoculated them against complacency. They'd built weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand supernovas, and ships that could dance between the stars. When the combined alien armada arrived at the edge of the solar system, expecting easy prey, they instead found a fortress. The Battle of Pluto, as it came to be known, was humanity's coming-out party. Outnumbered 1,000 to 1, the Earth Defense Fleet struck with the fury of a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for this moment. Alien ships, some the size of continents, were reduced to cosmic dust by weaponry they couldn't even comprehend. It was in the aftermath of this victory that the alien races did something unprecedented. They stopped fighting each other. For the first time in millennia, the warring factions of the galaxy formed an uneasy alliance. Not out of friendship or common cause, but out of fear. Fear of the upstart humans who had bloodied their collective nose. But humanity knew this was just the beginning. The aliens might have superior numbers and had millennia of war-making experience, but they lacked Earth's greatest weapon, adaptability. Humans had gone from horse-drawn carriages to starships in less than half a millennium. Given time, they knew they could outpace and outfight the alien hordes. There was just one problem: time wasn't on their side. The Galactic Alliance, as the aliens called themselves, controlled vast swathes of the Milky Way. They had resources and manpower that humanity couldn't hope to match. Earth needed allies, and fast. Probes were sent out in secret, searching for any race that might stand with humanity against the encroaching storm. But each mission returned with the same result: there were no friends to be found among the stars. It was then, in humanity's darkest hour, that someone remembered an old saying: man's best friend. For thousands of years, one species had stood by humanity's side, through thick and thin, from the hunt to the hearth, from battlefields to bomb shelters. Dogs. The Neo-Canine Enhancement Project was born out of equal parts desperation, ingenuity, and that uniquely human brand of insanity that so often changes the course of history. If humanity couldn't find allies among the stars, they would create them here on Earth. The first generations were problematic. Enhanced intelligence without the proper safeguards led to packs of hyper-intelligent, feral beasts rampaging through research facilities. Increased size and strength without corresponding improvements in impulse control resulted in incidents that still give lab technicians nightmares. But humans, as always, persevered. With each generation, the neo-dogs became more stable, more intelligent, more human. By the 5th generation, the project had produced bipedal canines capable of speech, abstract reasoning, and complex problem-solving. More importantly, they retained the loyalty, courage, and pack mentality that had made dogs humanity's closest companions for millennia. As I stand here, a proud member of that 5th generation, I can't help but feel a sense of destiny. We were born for this, to stand alongside our human brothers and sisters in the greatest fight our world has ever known. The aliens thought they had found an easy target, a young race to subjugate or destroy. Instead, they awakened a sleeping giant and filled him with terrible resolve, and now that giant has a new set of teeth. My name is Rex Wolfborn, Sergeant in the Earth Defense Force's 1st Interspecies Battalion. And this is the story of how dogs helped humanity conquer the stars. I still remember the day I first opened my eyes in the lab. Unlike my wild ancestors, who enter the world blind and helpless, I was born with my senses fully developed, my mind already racing with thoughts and questions. The scientists called it accelerated neural maturation. I just called it confusing as hell. Dr. Elena Rett, the lead geneticist of the Neo Canine Enhancement Project, was the first face I saw. Her eyes, wide with a mixture of scientific curiosity and maternal warmth, studied me as I took my first bipedal steps. "Welcome to the world, little one," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're going to help us save it." I didn't understand the weight of her words then, but I would soon enough. The early days of the program were challenging, to say the least. Holovids from the first-generation experiments still haunt the nightmares of many lab techs. Picture a pack of wolves with the problem-solving skills of chimpanzees and the mood swings of a hormone-addled teenager. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. Gen 1 Neo dogs were aggressive, unpredictable, and often reverted to quadrupedal movement under stress. They could understand complex commands but struggled with verbal communication, leading to frustration that often exploded into violence. More than one lab ended up quarantined after a Gen 1 pack figured out how to open doors. Gen 2 brought improvements in impulse control and linguistic capabilities, but at the cost of the fierce loyalty that had made dogs humanity's companions for millennia. These neo-dogs were coldly logical, viewing their human creators as neither masters nor partners, but simply as another species to compete with for resources. It was Gen 3 that finally struck a balance between canine instinct and human-level cognition. This was when the first successful integration of neo-dogs into military units occurred. However, their enhanced physical abilities often outpaced their emotional development, leading to incidents of accidental harm to human comrades during training exercises. Gen 4, my parents' generation, was the first to be truly bipedal from birth. They could speak fluently, reason abstractly, and work seamlessly alongside human soldiers, but they still struggled with complex ethical dilemmas and long-term strategic thinking. And then there's us. Gen 5. The first generation deemed combat ready from day one. Our physical capabilities surpass those of the fittest human athletes. We can run at speeds of up to 50 mph in short bursts, lift several times our body weight, and our enhanced senses make us living, breathing reconnaissance units. But it's our minds that truly set us apart. We possess eidetic memory, allowing us to recall every detail of our training with perfect clarity. Our problem-solving skills rival those of human geniuses, and we can process tactical information faster than most advanced AI systems. And yet we've retained the core essence of what made dogs man's best friend for thousands of years: unwavering loyalty, courage, and a deep-seated need to be part of a pack. But we're not just weapons or tools. We're individuals, with our own thoughts, desires, and yes, even doubts. I remember the day halfway through our accelerated growth cycle, when I first questioned my place in this new world. I was in the library module of our training facility, absorbing information about Earth's history at a rate that would have made my wolf ancestors' heads spin. "Hey," Rex called out my bunkmate, a sleek Doberman-based Neo named Shadow. "Ever wonder if we're doing the right thing?" I looked up from my holoscreen, tilting my head in that distinctly canine gesture of curiosity. "What do you mean?" Shadow's ears flattened slightly, a sign of discomfort. "I mean, we were created to fight a war, to kill. Doesn't that make us, I don't know, bad dogs?" I pondered this for a moment, my tail swishing thoughtfully. "We were created to protect," I said finally. "Our ancestors guarded human homes and families for thousands of years. We're just doing it on a larger scale now." Shadow didn't seem entirely convinced, but he nodded anyway. It was a conversation we'd revisit many times in the years to come. As our training intensified, so did the reports from the front lines. The Galactic Alliance was pushing harder against Earth's defenses, probing for weaknesses. Humanity needed us ready, and fast. Graduation day came sooner than any of us expected. One moment we were running combat simulations, the next we were being fitted for our powered armor suits, custom designed to work with our unique physiology. As I stood there, feeling the weight of the armor and the even heavier weight of expectation, Dr. Rett approached me. Her hair had more gray in it than when I first saw her, and lines of worry creased her face. "Rex," she said, her voice soft but firm, You and your kind are about to face challenges no dog, no soldier has ever faced before. Remember your training, remember your pack, and most importantly, remember why you fight. I stood at attention, my ears perked forward. To protect humanity, ma am. To be the shield that stands between Earth and those who would destroy her. Dr. Rhett smiled, a mixture of pride and sadness in her eyes. Yes, but it's more than that. You fight so that one day, we won't have to fight anymore. So that humans and neo-dogs alike can look to the stars and see not a battlefield, but a frontier to explore together. As I boarded the transport ship that would take us to our first deployment, those words echoed in my mind. We were more than experiments, more than soldiers. We were the next step in the ancient partnership between humans and dogs. And we were ready to take that partnership to the stars. The transport ship hummed around us as we left Earth's atmosphere. Through the viewports, I watched my home planet shrink, a blue marble suspended in the vast darkness of space. It was beautiful, fragile, and worth every ounce of effort to protect. Our destination, Luna Base Alpha, humanity's state-of-the-art training facility for the Earth Defense Force. As the first batch of combat-ready neo-dogs, we were about to be put through our paces alongside the best human soldiers Earth had to offer. Excited, Wolfborn asked Captain Patricia Hunter, our human commanding officer. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of anticipation and curiosity. I straightened my posture, ears perked. Affirmative, Captain. We're eager to prove our worth. Hunter nodded, a slight smile on her face. Just remember, this isn't a competition between species. We're all on the same team here. As we disembarked onto the lunar surface, the reduced gravity made my movements feel exaggerated. Our suits compensated quickly, but it was still a novel sensation. The base itself was a marvel of engineering, a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and underground facilities, capable of withstanding both the harsh lunar environment and potential alien attacks. Training began immediately. Our days were filled with a grueling regimen of physical conditioning, combat simulations, and tactical exercises. The human soldiers, initially skeptical of their canine counterparts, quickly learned to appreciate our unique abilities. In close-quarters combat, our enhanced strength and reflexes gave us a clear edge. During one particularly intense session, I found myself paired against Sergeant Mike O'Ile, a burly Irish soldier known for his boxing skills. "All right, Fido," he grinned, raising his fists. "Let's see what you've got." I didn't rise to the bait, instead focusing on his stance, his breathing, the minute twitches of his muscles that telegraphed his moves. When he threw a lightning-fast jab, I was already moving, ducking under his arm and using my lower center of gravity to flip him over my shoulder. O'Ile hit the mat with a thud, the wind knocked out of him. As I helped him up, he shook his head in amazement. "Remind me never to piss off a dog again," he chuckled. But it wasn't all about physical prowess. Our enhanced cognitive abilities shone in the strategy simulations. During one particularly challenging scenario involving a multi-pronged alien attack on a human colony, it was Shadow who came up with the winning strategy. "If we use the planet's magnetic field to our advantage," he explained, his tail swishing excitedly as he manipulated the holographic display, "we can create a blind spot in their sensors here and here. That'll let us slip our stealth ships behind their lines and take out their command structure." The human strategists were impressed, and Shadow's plan became the basis for several real-world operations in the months that followed. Yet, for all our successes, there were moments of tension and misunderstanding. Cultural differences between humans and neo-dogs led to occasional clashes. Our pack instincts sometimes conflicted with traditional military hierarchy, and our enhanced senses could be overwhelmed in the chaos of simulated battle. One particularly difficult day stands out in my memory. We were running a rescue operation simulation, and things were going smoothly until we entered a chamber filled with holographic civilians. The cacophony of sounds, smells, and movement overloaded my senses, triggering an instinctive response. Before I knew it, I was on all fours, growling at Shadows. Captain Hunter found me like that, huddled in a corner, my tactical systems offline. Instead of reprimanding me, she sat down next to me, her voice soft and calming. "It's okay, Rex," she said, slowly reaching out to scratch behind my ears. "We all have our moments of weakness. The key is to learn from them, to grow stronger. Her words and touch grounded me, reminding me of the bond between humans and dogs that had endured for millennia. It was a humbling experience, but also a valuable lesson. We might be enhanced, but we were still dogs at heart, with all the strengths and vulnerabilities that entailed. As our training progressed, we learned to work seamlessly with our human counterparts, each species complementing the other's strengths and compensating for their weaknesses. Humans provided the strategic oversight and creative problem-solving, while we neo-dogs offered unparalleled sensory awareness and lightning-fast tactical responses. But it wasn't all work. In our downtime, we forged deep friendships with our human comrades. Movie nights in the rec room became a regular occurrence, with heated debates over whether Lassie or K9 was the superior classic dog film. O'Hale took it upon himself to teach us poker, though he soon regretted it when our ability to read micro-expressions made us unbeatable opponents. As our training neared its end, anticipation built among both humans and neo-dogs. We were no longer separate species thrust together by circumstance, but a cohesive unit ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at us. On our last night at Luna Base Alpha, Captain Hunter gathered us all in the main auditorium. Her face was serious as she addressed the assembled troops. "Tomorrow, you ship out to the front line," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. You've trained hard, you've worked together, and you've become something greater than the sum of your parts. Humanity and neo-dogs, standing united against the storm." She paused, her gaze sweeping over us. "The enemy thinks they know what they're facing. They think they've got us figured out. But they've never seen anything like you. Show them what happens when you back Earth into a corner. Show them what happens when you threaten the home of humanity and its best friends." A chorus of cheers and barks filled the auditorium. As we filed out to prepare for our deployment, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Our training days were over. The real test was about to begin. That night, as I lay in my bunk, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The millennia of coevolution between humans and dogs, the scientific breakthroughs that had created beings like me, the looming threat that had necessitated our existence. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: we would face it together, humans and neo-dogs, united in our determination to protect our home and forge a future among the stars. As I drifted off to sleep, my last thoughts were of Earth, that blue marble hanging in the void. Tomorrow, we would begin our journey to ensure it stayed safe. The low hum of the starship's engines reverberated through my bones as we dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. I stood at attention with my fellow neo-dogs and human comrades in the briefing room, our eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing our target a small, rocky moon orbiting a gas giant. Colonel Vance, a grizzled veteran with more combat drops than most of us had training simulations, stepped forward. "Listen up, pups and grunts," he growled, his voice carrying the weight of years of command. "Intel suggests the Galactic Alliance is setting up a forward operating base on that moon. Our job is to shut it down before it becomes operational." Captain Hunter zoomed in on the hologram, highlighting a series of structures on the moon's surface. "We'll be dropping in 3 teams. Alpha Team, led by myself, will hit their command center. Beta Team, under Sergeant O'Hale, will take out their power generators. Gamma Team, led by Sergeant Wolfborn, will secure their communications array." My ears perked up at the mention of my name. This was my first command, my chance to prove that neo-dogs could lead as well as follow. "Any questions?" Colonel Vance asked, his eyes scanning the room. Shadow, standing beside me, raised a paw. "Sir, what's our intel on the alien species we'll be facing?" The colonel nodded approvingly. "Good question, soldier. We're dealing with the Zar Kresh, a reptilian species known for their thermal vision and regenerative abilities. Your enhanced senses will be crucial in detecting them, especially in low-light conditions." As the briefing concluded, we moved to the drop bay to gear up. The ship's AI ran final checks on our powered armor suits, each custom fitted to our unique physiologies. I felt the familiar click as my neural interface connected, flooding my vision with tactical data. O'Hale approached me as I was doing my final equipment check. "First time leading a team into combat, A. Wolfborn," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Just remember, they're counting on you to bring them home. No pressure." I gave him a canine grin, my tail swishing slightly. "Don't worry, oh eel. I was born for this literally." The drop bay doors opened, revealing the stark, cratered landscape of the moon below. My team assembled around me 2 other neo-dogs and 3 humans, a perfect blend of our complementary abilities. "Gamma team, sound off," I barked. Rodriguez ready. Tanaka, good to go. Fang, itching for a fight. Whiskers, sensors primed. Cooper, locked and loaded. I nodded, feeling a surge of pride. "Remember your training, watch each other's backs, and let's show these aliens why you don't mess with Earth. Gamma team, deploy." We leapt from the bay, our suit thrusters firing to control our descent. The moon's low gravity made the drop feel almost leisurely, but we all knew that could change in an instant. As we neared the ground, my enhanced hearing picked up the high-pitched whine of energy weapons. "Incoming fire, 3 o'clock," I shouted through the comm. "Evasive maneuvers." We scattered, using the moon's numerous craters for cover. I landed hard behind a rocky outcropping, my armor absorbing most of the impact. "Whiskers, what are we dealing with?" The sleek Siamese-based neo-dog's eyes glowed as he accessed his suit's advanced sensors. "I'm reading 12 no, 14 heat signatures converging on our position. Definitely Zar Kresh." I quickly formulated a plan. "Fang, Rodriguez, flank left. Tanaka, Cooper, go right. Whiskers, you're with me. We'll draw their fire while the others circle around." My team acknowledged the orders, moving with the precision that comes from countless hours of training. As Whiskers and I broke cover, unleashing a barrage of suppressing fire, I caught my first glimpse of our adversaries. The Zar Kresh were imposing figures 7 feet tall, covered in iridescent scales, with long, powerful tails that they used for balance as they returned fire. But for all their alien nature, they were no match for our coordinated assault. Fang's superhuman speed allowed him to close the distance rapidly, his reinforced claws tearing through the Zar Kresh's armor like it was tissue paper. Rodriguez and Cooper provided covering fire, their aim enhanced by their neural links to their weapons. As the skirmish intensified, I found myself face to face with a Zar Kresh commander. Its forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air as it sized me up. "Abomination," it hissed in broken English. "You dare to stand against the might of the Alliance?" I bared my teeth in a fierce grin. "We're not standing against you," I growled. "We're running circles around you with that." I launched into action, my enhanced reflexes allowing me to dodge its energy blade as I closed in. The fight was brutal but brief. My claws found the weak points in its armor, guided by the tactical data streaming across my HUD. As the alien fell, I turned to see the rest of my team had successfully neutralized the remaining Zar Kresh. "Gamma team, status report," I barked. "All targets neutralized," Tanaka replied. "Cooper took a hit, but the suit absorbed most of it. He'll live." I nodded, relief flooding through me. We'd won our first engagement without losing anyone. Good work, everyone. Now let's secure that comm array before reinforcements arrive. As we moved towards our objective, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humans and neo-dogs, working in perfect harmony, had just handed the Galactic Alliance their first defeat on this moon. It was a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it proved what we were capable of. The communications array loomed before us, a twisted spire of alien technology reaching towards the stars. As we approached, I received a transmission from Captain Hunter. "Good work, Gamma team," her voice crackled through the comm. "Alpha and Beta have achieved their objectives. Secure that array, and we can call this operation a success." I acknowledged the order, then turned to my team. "All right, let's finish this. Whiskers, start the hack. Everyone else, defensive positions. This isn't over until we're back on the ship." As Whiskers worked his tech magic on the alien systems, I took a moment to survey our surroundings. The barren lunar landscape, Earth's distant sun, a mere pinprick of light in the sky, the wreckage of our recent battle, it all drove home the reality of our situation. We were fighting for the survival of our species on a tiny rock orbiting an alien star. But as I looked at my team, human and Neo-Dog alike, I felt a surge of hope. We had faced our first real test and emerged victorious. Whatever the Galactic Alliance threw at us next, we would be ready. The familiar hum of our dropship approaching signaled the end of our mission. As we boarded, exhausted but triumphant, I caught O'Heil's eye. He gave me a respectful nod. "Not bad for a first-timer, Wolfborn," he said with a grin. "Looks like you mutts might be useful after all." I chuckled, feeling the tension of the battle finally start to ease. "Just remember," O'Heil I quipped, "every dog has its day. Today was ours." As the dropship lifted off, leaving the battered moon behind, I settled in for the ride home. Our first deployment had been a success, but I knew it was just the beginning. The war for Earth's survival was far from over, and we humans and Neo-Dogs together would be on the front lines every step of the way. Months had passed since our first deployment, and the novelty of space combat had long since worn off. The Proxima Centauri campaign had been a success, but it was just the opening salvo in what was shaping up to be a long, grueling war. I stood on the observation deck of the EDF Constellation, Earth's flagship, gazing out at the swirling nebula that marked the current front line. Behind me, I heard the familiar click of claws on metal as Shadow approached. "Credit for your thoughts, Rex?" he asked, coming to stand beside me. I sighed, my tail swishing slowly. "Just wondering what new horrors the universe has in store for us today." Shadow chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. "Well, whatever it is, I bet it tastes better than the protein cubes they're serving in the mess hall. I swear, I'm starting to miss kibble." Before I could respond, the ship's AI, Aria, chimed in. "Sergeant Wolfborn, Corporal Shadow, your presence is requested in the war room immediately." We shared a look. A summons to the war room never meant anything good. As we entered, I was struck by the tense atmosphere. Colonel Vance stood at the head of the holodable, his face grim. Captain Hunter and O'Heil were there too, along with several other high-ranking officers I didn't recognize. "Glad you could join us," Gentleman Vance said, his voice gruff. "We've got a situation." The holodable flickered to life, displaying a massive, ring-shaped structure floating in space. "This," Vance continued, "is a Kree-Ek world ship. It just dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Epsilon Eridani system." I felt my hackles rise. The Kree-Ek were one of the most formidable species in the Galactic Alliance, a hive-mind race of insectoids known for their brutal efficiency in combat. Intel suggests they're planning to use this world ship as a staging ground for a major push into our territory, Hunter added. "If they establish a foothold in Epsilon Eridani, Earth will be their next target." O'Heil leaned forward, his face serious. "So what's the plan? Please tell me we're not just going to roll over and show our bellies." I couldn't help but growl at the canine metaphor. O'Heil shot me an apologetic glance. Vance's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "Not quite, Sergeant. We're going to hit them where it hurts. Our science team has identified a critical weakness in the world ship structure. If we can plant charges at these key points," he highlighted several areas on the hologram, "we can trigger a chain reaction that will tear the whole thing apart." "Sounds simple enough," Shadow said, his tail wagging slightly. "What's the catch?" "The catch," Hunter replied, "is that someone needs to infiltrate the world ship to plant those charges. The Kree-Ek's hive mind makes them nearly impossible to fool. We need a team that can move fast, think on their feet, and work seamlessly together." All eyes in the room turned to Shadow and me. I felt a mix of pride and trepidation. "You want us to lead the mission?" Vance nodded. "You'll have your pick of operatives, human and Neo-Dog. This is a volunteer mission only. The risks are significant." As the briefing continued, detailing the specifics of the operation, I found my mind racing. This wasn't just another skirmish or raid. This was a mission that could turn the tide of the entire war. Hours later, I stood before our assembled strike team in the hangar bay. Humans and Neo-Dogs, each handpicked for their skills and experience. I saw determination in their eyes, but also fear. They knew the stakes. "I won't lie to you," I began, my voice carrying across the bay. "This mission is dangerous. Some of us might not make it back. But what we're about to do could save billions of lives, human, neo-dog, and yes, even alien. I paused, looking each team member in the eye. We've trained for this. We've bled for this. Now, it's time to show the galaxy what happens when you back Earth into a corner. Who's with me? The response was a chorus of cheers and barks that echoed through the hangar. As we boarded our stealth dropship, Eel approached me. "Hey, Wolfborn," he said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "Make sure you come back in one piece, yeah? Who else is going to be my poker buddy?" I grinned, showing my teeth. "Worried you'll lose your best source of income, Ohio." He laughed, clapping me on the shoulder. "Just remember, no heroics. I've got 20 credits riding on you making it back alive." The journey to the world ship was tense. Our stealth systems kept us hidden, but one wrong move could give us away. As we approached, the sheer scale of the structure became apparent. It was like a metal planet, bristling with weapons and crawling with Clarke ships. "Okay, team," I said as we prepared for insertion. "We've got 6 targets to hit. We'll split into 3 groups. Shadow, you're leading Beta team. Whiskers, you've got Gamma. I'll take Alpha. Stay in constant communication, and if anything goes sideways, don't hesitate to call for backup." We breached the world ship's outer hull using specially designed plasma cutters. The moment we were inside, the alienness of the environment hit me. The air was thick with pheromones. The walls pulsed with an organic quality that made my fur stand on end. Shadow groaned over the comm. "It smells worse than that time Cooper tried to cook chili for the entire barracks." Hey, Cooper's indignant voice came through. "That chili was a family recipe." "Yeah, a recipe for disaster," Whiskers chimed in. I couldn't help but chuckle. Even in the belly of the beast, facing impossible odds, my team's spirit remained unbroken. As we navigated the twisting corridors of the world ship, we encountered sporadic resistance. The Clarke were formidable opponents, their hive mind, allowing them to coordinate with uncanny precision. But we had our own advantages. Our mixed teams of humans and neo-dogs proved devastatingly effective, with each species compensating for the other's weaknesses. We were making good progress, having planted charges at 4 of our 6 targets when things went sideways. A piercing alarm echoed through the ship, followed by a surge of Clarke warriors. "They've detected us," Whiskers yelled over the comm. "Gamma team is pinned down near the 5th target." I made a split-second decision. "Beta, continue to the final target. Alpha, with me. We're going to get Gamma out of there." What followed was the most intense firefight of my life. The Clarke came at us in waves, their chitinous armor deflecting much of our weapons' fire. But we gave as good as we got. I saw humans and neo-dogs alike performing feats of bravery that would have been unthinkable just months ago. In the heat of battle, I found myself fighting back-to-back with a human soldier named Zhao. Her rifle blazed as she took down Clarke after Clarke after Clarke, while I used my enhanced strength and speed to engage in close-quarters combat. "You know," Zhao yelled over the din of battle, "I used to be a cat person." I barked a laugh as I tore into another Clarke warrior. "And now?" She grinned, reloading her rifle with practiced ease. "Let's just say I'm reconsidering my position." Finally, we managed to fight our way to Gamma team, help them plant their charge, and begin our retreat. Shadow reported success at the final target just as we reached our extraction point. As our dropship rocketed away from the world ship, I watched through the view screen as the charges detonated. The massive structure began to break apart, secondary explosions rippling across its surface. The cheer that went up in our ship was deafening. Humans and neo-dogs embraced, all protocol forgotten in the euphoria of survival and victory. But as the adrenaline faded, the cost of our mission became clear. We had lost good soldiers, both human and neo-dog. Their sacrifices would be honored, their names remembered. As we docked with the Constellation, I felt the weight of command heavy on my shoulders. We had won a significant victory, but the war was far from over, and each battle seemed to blur the lines between human and neo-dog, between Earth and the stars we now called our battlefield. I looked at my team, battered, exhausted, but alive and victorious. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: we would face it together, as the family we had become. As we disembarked, I overheard Eel talking to Hunter. "You know, Captain," he said, a note of wonder in his voice, "I think we might actually have a chance in this war." Hunter's reply was quiet but filled with determination. "With soldiers like these, both human and neo-dog, we have more than a chance, Sergeant. We have hope." And in that moment, standing among my fellow soldiers, I felt it too. Hope for our future, hope for Earth, and hope for the incredible partnership between humans and dogs that had brought us to the stars. The Galactic Alliance had no idea what they were in for. The humans had a saying: "Every dog has its day." Well, our day was just beginning, and it was going to be a long and glorious one. The destruction of the Clarke world ship had bought us some breathing room, but the war raged on. Months passed in a blur of missions, briefings, and all too short periods of rest. With each engagement, the bond between human and neo-dog grew stronger, our tactics more refined, our resolve more unshakable. I stood in the Constellation's war room, my fur still damp from a post-mission shower, studying the holographic map of known space. The glowing dots representing Earth-controlled systems were vastly outnumbered by the encroaching red of Galactic Alliance territory. "Penny for your thoughts, Sergeant Wolfborn." I turned to see Dr. Elena Rhett, the scientist responsible for the Neo-Dog program, entering the room. Her presence on a frontline ship was unusual, to say the least. "Just wondering how long we can keep this up, Dr. Rhett," I replied honestly. "We're winning battles, but the war." She nodded, her eyes tired but determined. "That's actually why I'm here. We might have found a game changer." Before she could elaborate, the room filled with the senior staff. Colonel Vance, Captain Hunter, Eel, and to my surprise, my old packmate Shadow, now sporting lieutenant stripes. "All right, people," Vance began without preamble. "Dr. Rhett and her team have made a breakthrough that could turn this war around. Doctor, if you would." Rhett stepped forward, tapping at the holodable. The star map disappeared, replaced by a complex molecular structure. "We've been studying the remains of the Clarke world ship," she explained, "and we've discovered something fascinating about their hive mind communication system. It relies on a very specific pheromone compound to maintain cohesion." Eel leaned forward, intrigued. "And let me guess, you found a way to disrupt it?" Rhett smiled. "Better. We think we can hijack it." The implications hit me like a plasma bolt. "You mean we could potentially control their forces?" "Not quite control," Rhett clarified. "But we could certainly sow confusion, disrupt their coordination. In the chaos of battle, that could make all the difference." Vance's eyes gleamed with the first real hope I'd seen in months. "How soon can we weaponize this?" "That's where it gets tricky," Rhett said, her expression turning serious. "We need a large sample of the pheromone compound to synthesize our disruptor, and the only place to get that is..." A living Clarke hive hunter finished, her voice grim. The room fell silent as the enormity of the task sank in. Shadow was the first to speak up. "So we need to infiltrate an active hive, collect this compound, and get out alive." "Sounds like a walk in the park," his tail wagged sardonically. "It gets better," Rhett continued. "The compound degrades quickly once the host dies. We need to extract it from a living Clarke queen." I couldn't help but bark a laugh. "Is that all? And here I thought you were going to ask for something difficult." Eel grinned, clapping me on the shoulder. "That's the spirit, Wolfborn. If anyone can pull off this insane stunt, it's you and your pack of super pooches." I growled playfully at the jab, but my mind was already racing with the possibilities. "We'll need a small team. Fast, quiet, with the best stealth tech we've got." Vance nodded. "Assemble your team, Sergeant. You'll have whatever resources you need. This mission is priority alpha." As the others filed out to begin preparations, Dr. Rhett held me back. "Rex," she said softly, using my first name for the first time in years. "I know we created you and your kind for war, but seeing you out there fighting alongside humans, it's more than I ever dreamed possible. I tilted my head, curious. How so, Doctor? She smiled, her eyes misty. We didn't just create soldiers. We created partners, friends, family. Whatever happens on this mission, never forget that you've already achieved something incredible. Her words stayed with me as I set about selecting my team. In the end, I chose a mix of seasoned veterans and promising rookies: Shadow, my trusted second Whiskers, our tech expert Fang, a neo-mastiff built like a tank Nova, a human stealth specialist with reflexes that could rival any neo-dog, and Cooper, whose skill with explosives was matched only by his terrible jokes. As we prepped our gear in the hangar bay, Cooper was in rare form. "Hey, Rex," he called out, grinning. "What do you call a Clarke with no legs?" I sighed, knowing I'd regret asking. "What?" "A Clarke with no legs," he doubled over, laughing at his own joke. Shadow groaned. "Cooper, I swear, if you don't stop with the dad jokes, I'm going to leave you for the Clarke." Nova chimed in, her voice dry. "Bold of you to assume the Clarke would want him." As the banter continued, I felt a swell of affection for this mismatched group. Humans and neo-dogs, united by a common purpose and forged into a family by the crucible of war. Our mission took us to a remote system on the fringes of Clarke space. Our target, a small hive ship that intelligence suggested was home to a young queen. As our stealth shuttle approached, the hive ship loomed before us, a twisted mass of organic metal that pulsed with an alien heartbeat. "All right, team," I said, my voice low and serious. "We go in fast and quiet. Nova, you're on point. Whiskers, keep our comms scrambled. Everyone else, watch our six. And remember, we need the queen alive." We breached the hull, using the same plasma cutters that had served us well on the world ship. The interior was a nightmare of pulsing flesh and chitinous armor, the air thick with pheromones that made my nose twitch. "Ooh," Fang grumbled. "It smells worse than Cooper's socks in here." Cooper shot him a wounded look. "Hey, I'll have you know my socks smell like a field of daisies." "Yeah, if those daisies were fertilized with skunk spray," Shadow muttered. I hushed them with a gesture as we approached a junction. My enhanced hearing picked up the sound of approaching Clarke warriors. What followed was a tense game of cat and mouse through the twisting corridors of the hive ship. We avoided conflict where we could, using Nova's stealth expertise and our own enhanced senses to slip past patrols. When fighting was unavoidable, we struck hard and fast, leaving no time for alarms to be raised. Finally, we reached the central chamber. And there she was, the Clarke queen, easily 3 times the size of her warriors, her body a writhing mass of egg-laying appendages. "Well," Cooper whispered, "that's not something you see every day." "Focus," I growled. "Whiskers, you're up. Get that sample. Everyone else, defensive positions. This is about to get messy." Whiskers approached the queen, his specialized collection device at the ready. The queen, sensing our presence, let out a piercing shriek that reverberated through the ship. "So much for the element of surprise," Nova muttered, readying her weapon. The next few minutes were chaos. Clarke warriors poured into the chamber from every entrance. We fought with everything we had, human and neo-dog moving in perfect synchronization. Fang was a whirlwind of fur and fury, his massive frame bowling over Clarke like pins. Nova danced between enemies, her shots finding weak points with uncanny accuracy. Shadow and I fought back to back, covering each other's blind spots. Through it all, Whiskers worked feverishly to collect the precious pheromone compound. "Almost got it," he called out, his voice strained. "Just need another got it." "Time to go," I barked. "Cooper, light it up." Cooper grinned, producing a handful of grenades. "Time to make some fireworks." We fought our way back to our entry point, Cooper's explosives clearing a path and collapsing corridors behind us to slow our pursuers. As we reached our shuttle, I did a quick head count. Everyone was accounted for, battered but alive. As we rocketed away from the hive ship, I watched through the view screen as Cooper's parting gift detonated, tearing the alien vessel apart. The shuttle erupted in cheers and barks of triumph. Humans and neo-dogs embraced, the distinctions between our species forgotten in the euphoria of survival and success. As we docked with the Constellation, Dr. Rhett was waiting, her face anxious. When Whiskers presented her with the pheromone sample, her eyes lit up with a mix of scientific excitement and hope. "You did it," she breathed. "With this, we can turn the tide of the war." I nodded, feeling the weight of exhaustion settling over me. "Just another day at the office, Doctor. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think my team and I have earned some rest, and maybe a few steaks." As we headed for the mess hall, I caught sight of our reflection in a polished bulkhead humans and neo-dogs, dirty, bloodied, but standing tall together. In that moment, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them as one. The Galactic Alliance had unleashed a terrible war upon us, but in doing so, they had forged an unbreakable bond between two species. Humanity and their best friends united against the stars. As Shadow liked to say, every dog might have its day, but together we were about to have our century. And the galaxy wasn't ready for what was coming. The weeks following our Clarke Hive mission were a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Rhett and her team worked around the clock to synthesize the pheromone disruptor, while the rest of us prepared for what promised to be our most ambitious operation yet. I stood in the Constellation's briefing room, surrounded by a mix of high-ranking officers and my fellow squad leaders, both human and neo-dog. The atmosphere was charged with a potent mix of anticipation and anxiety. Colonel Vance's gruff voice cut through the murmur of conversation. "All right, people, listen up. Thanks to Sergeant Wolfborn's team and Dr. Rhett breakthrough, we're about to launch Operation Trojan Horse." The holodouble flickered to life, displaying a massive Clarke battle station orbiting a gas giant. "This," Vance continued, "is the Hive Nexus. It's the central command hub for the entire Clarke war effort in this sector. Our mission is to infiltrate it, deploy the pheromone disruptor, and turn their own forces against them." Captain Hunter stepped forward. "We'll be inserting multiple teams. Alpha Team, led by Sergeant Wolfborn, will handle the disruptor deployment. Beta Team, under Lieutenant Shadow, will secure the station's power core. Gamma and Delta will provide distraction and extraction, respectively." I felt a surge of pride at Shadow's promotion, even as the weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders. This wasn't just another mission. The fate of the entire war could hinge on our success or failure. As the briefing concluded, I pulled my team aside. "All right, Pack," I said, using the term that had become our informal moniker. "This is the big one. We've trained for this, we've bled for this. Now it's time to show the Clarke what happens when you mess with Earth and her best friends." Fang, the Neo-Mastiff, let out a low growl of approval. About time we took the fight to them. Nova, our human stealth specialist, nodded in agreement. "I've been itching to test out the new cloaking tech RD cooked up." "Just remember," Whiskers chimed in, his whiskers twitching with nervous energy, "we need to get in and out fast. The disruptor has a limited operational window before the Clarke adapt." Cooper grinned, patting his bag of explosives. "Don't worry, buddy. If things get hairy, I've got enough boom here to send that station to the Big Dog Park in the sky." I couldn't help but chuckle. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Now, gear up. We drop in 3 hours. As we made our final preparations, Dr. Rhett approached me, carrying a small, high-tech canister. "This is it, Rex," she said, her voice a mix of pride and concern. "The culmination of all our work." I took the canister gently in my paws, acutely aware of its importance. "We won't let you down, Doctor." She smiled, reaching out to scratch behind my ears, a gesture that never failed to comfort me, no matter how dire the situation. "I know you won't. Just come back safe, all of you. You're more than just soldiers to me, you know." I leaned into her touch for a moment, allowing myself this small moment of vulnerability. "We will. That's a promise." The journey to the Hive Nexus was tense. Our stealth ships slipped through enemy lines, their hulls coated with a new metamaterial that absorbed sensor scans like a sponge. As we approached the massive battle station, its true scale became apparent. It was like a metal planet, bristling with weapons and crawling with Clarke ships. "Damn," Cooper whispered, his usual joviality subdued. That's one big bug zapper. Stay focused, I growled, more to steady myself than to admonish him. Remember the plan. We go in fast and quiet. Nova, you're on point with the cloaking device. Whiskers, jam their internal sensors. Fang, Cooper, you're our heavy hitters if things go sideways. We breached the station's outer hull, using a specially designed plasma cutter, slipping into a maintenance shaft barely large enough for Fang's bulky frame. Oh, the Neo-Mastiff grumbled. I feel like a sausage in a too tight casing. Nova smirked. Look on the bright side, big guy. At least you're not a cat. They'd have to butter you up to get you out. Less chatter, more sneaking, I admonished, but I couldn't help the twitch of amusement in my tail. Our banter, even in the face of danger, was a reminder of the bond we'd forged. We made our way through the twisting corridors of the station, guided by intel from long-range scans and Whisker's real-time hacking of the station's systems. The pheromone-rich atmosphere made my nose twitch, but our specially designed respirators kept us from being overwhelmed. As we neared the central pheromone distribution hub, our luck ran out. A patrol of Clarke warriors rounded the corner, mandibles clicking in surprise at the sight of us. So much for stealth, I growled. Take them out quickly. What followed was a brutal, close-quarters fight. Nova's plasma pistol whined, taking out 2 Clarke before they could raise the alarm. Fang barreled into another, his augmented muscles allowing him to crack even the tough exoskeleton of the insectoid aliens. Cooper and Whiskers worked in tandem, one providing covering fire while the other hacked a nearby console to seal off the corridor. I found myself face to face with the patrol leader, a particularly large Clarke with scarred chitin. Its mandibles clacked in what I assumed was a challenge. You dare invade the hive, Mammalet hissed in broken English. I bared my teeth in a feral grin. We're not invading, I growled. We're exterminators, and business is booming. With that, I launched myself at the alien, my enhanced reflexes allowing me to dodge its first strike. We grappled, a furious whirlwind of claws, teeth, and chitinous limbs. For a moment, it seemed evenly matched until I managed to sink my teeth into a weak joint in its armor. The Clarke let out a high-pitched shriek as I tore through its defenses, finally falling still. As the last enemy fell, we regrouped, breathing heavily. Everyone okay, I asked, doing a quick visual check of my team. Nova nodded, reloading her pistol. Nothing a little matey gel won't fix. Speak for yourself, Cooper grumbled, nursing a nasty-looking gash on his arm. I think one of them tried to make me into a chew toy. Fang let out a rumbling chuckle. Don't worry, Cooper. You're way too stringy to be a good chew toy. Thanks, buddy. Your vote of confidence is overwhelming. I allowed myself a small smile at their banter before refocusing. We need to move. That fight definitely didn't go unnoticed. We double-timed it to the pheromone hub, Whiskers working furiously to keep us undetected. When we finally reached our target, I felt a surge of triumph. The hub was a massive, pulsating organ-like structure, tubes and conduits spreading out from it like arteries. Whiskers, you're up, I said, handing him the precious canister of disruptor. Make it count. As Whiskers worked to integrate the disruptor into the hub, the rest of us took up defensive positions. It wasn't long before we heard the sound of approaching Clarke reinforcements. How much longer? I called out to Whiskers. Almost there, he replied, his paws flying over the alien console. Just need to. Got it. A low hum filled the air, and the pulsing of the hub changed rhythm. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, we heard the sound of confusion and discord spreading through the station. Over our comms, Shadow's voice crackled to life. Wolfborn, whatever you did, it's working. The Clarke are turning on each other. Now's our chance to hit the power core. Copy that, I replied. All teams, execute your objectives. Let's turn this station into a shooting gallery. What followed was the most chaotic and exhilarating battle of my life. As we fought our way back to the extraction point, we witnessed Clarke warriors attacking each other in confusion, entire sections of the station descending into anarchy. Cooper's explosives opened paths where there were none, while Nova's stealth tech allowed us to slip past the worst of the fighting. Fang and I took point, our enhanced strength and speed making us living battering rams through the panicked alien hordes. As we neared our extraction point, a massive explosion rocked the station. "That's our cue to leave," Shadow's voice came through the comm. "Power cores set to blow. This whole place is going to be a very expensive firework in about 10 minutes. We double-timed it to the hangar bay, linking up with the other teams along the way. As we piled into our extraction shuttles, I did a quick head count. Everyone had made it battered, bloodied, but alive. As our shuttles rocketed away from the doomed Hive Nexus, I watched through the view screen as the massive station began to break apart. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface, and then, in a final cataclysmic blast, it detonated. The cheer that went up in our shuttle was deafening. Humans and neo-dogs embraced, all protocol forgotten in the euphoria of survival and victory. Even Colonel Vance, patching in from the Constellation, allowed himself a rare smile. "Outstanding work, all of you," he said, his gruff voice tinged with pride. "This may well be the turning point of the war." As the adrenaline of battle faded, I found myself reflecting on how far we'd come. Humans and neo-dogs working in perfect harmony to achieve the impossible. We'd struck a blow that the Galactic Alliance would not soon forget. But as I looked at my team, Cooper getting patched up by a medic, Nova and Whiskers excitedly discussing the tech we'd scavenged, Fang contentedly gnawing on a well-earned treat, I realized something profound. We weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. We were fighting for each other, for this strange, wonderful family we'd forged in the crucible of war. Human and neo-dog alike, we'd become something greater than the sum of our parts. As we docked with the Constellation, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain: as long as we stood together, there was no force in the galaxy that could stand against us. The Galactic Alliance had started this war thinking they faced a primitive, isolated species. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. Humanity and their best friends were taking the fight to the stars, and we were playing for keeps. The destruction of the Hive Nexus had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Alliance. For the first time since the war began, we had breathing room. As the Kree forces fell into disarray, Earth's military strategists saw an opportunity to consolidate our gains and prepare for the next phase of the conflict. Which is how I found myself, after nearly a year of continuous combat, standing on the soil of my home planet once again. As our shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, I pressed my nose against the viewport, drinking in the sight of blue oceans and green continents. Beside me, Fang let out a low whine of anticipation. "Never thought I'd miss the smell of Earth so much," he rumbled, his tail wagging slightly. Nova, our human stealth specialist, chuckled. "Just wait till you smell the pollution in New Beijing. You might change your mind." Our laughter was tinged with a mix of excitement and anxiety. We'd been fighting for so long, the thought of returning to normal life, even briefly, felt almost alien. As we touched down at the military spaceport outside New Beijing, I was struck by how much had changed. The skyline was dotted with new defense towers, sleek and deadly. Holovids flickered on massive screens, displaying news of the war and calls for unity. But it was the people that caught my attention most. Humans and neo-dogs walked side by side, not just as master and pet, but as equals. Neo-dog officers directed traffic alongside their human counterparts. In a nearby park, I saw human and neo-dog children playing together. "Well, I'll be damned," Cooper whispered, voicing what we were all thinking. "Looks like we've started a revolution back home too." Captain Hunter met us at the spaceport, her uniform crisp, despite the late hour. "Welcome home, team," she said, a rare smile gracing her features. "You've earned some RR, report back in 72 hours for debriefing and your next assignment." As we dispersed, I found myself wandering the streets of New Beijing with Shadow, taking in the sights and sounds of a world transformed by war. Its strange Shadow mused as we passed a recruitment center where young humans and neo-dogs lined up together. We were created for war, but look at what's happening. We're becoming part of society. I nodded, understanding his mix of pride and uncertainty. Dr. Rhett once told me that they didn't just create soldiers, they created partners. I don't think even she realized how true that would become. Our wanderings took us to a local park, where a statue caught my eye. It depicted a human soldier and a neo-dog standing back to back, weapons at the ready. The plaque read in honor of all who stand against the darkness, human and neo-dog alike. As we stood there, an elderly man approached us, leaning heavily on a cane. His eyes lit up with recognition. "Well, I'll be," he said, his voice wavering with age. "You must be some of them neo-dogs I've heard so much about. My grandson's over there fighting alongside your kind." Shadow and I straightened, offering a respectful salute. "It's an honor to serve, sir," I said. The old man's eyes misted over. "You know, I've had dogs all my life. Good dogs, loyal dogs, but never in my wildest dreams did I imagine." He trailed off, overcome with emotion. "Thank you, both of you, for everything you're doing out there." As he hobbled away, I felt a lump in my throat. It was a poignant reminder of why we fought, of the bonds between humans and dogs that stretched back millennia. Later that evening, our team regrouped at a local bar that catered to both species. The place was packed with off-duty soldiers and civilians, all mingling in a way that would have been unthinkable before the war. Cooper, already a few drinks in, was regaling a mixed group of humans and neo-dogs with tales of our exploits. So there we were, surrounded by Clarke, when Fang here decides to use one of them as an improvised bowling ball. Fang, normally stoic, was actually blushing under his fur. It was a tactical decision, he grumbled, but his wagging tail betrayed his amusement. Nova and Whiskers were deep in conversation with a group of tech specialists, excitedly discussing the latest advancements in battlefield technology. I caught snippets about neural interfaces and something called quantum entangled communication. As I nursed my own drink, a specially formulated neo-dog-friendly cocktail, I found myself in conversation with a human journalist named Ava Hunter. "Sergeant Wolfborn," she began, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Your team's exploits are becoming legendary. How does it feel to be at the forefront of this new era of human-canine cooperation?" I considered her question carefully. "It's humbling," I said finally. "We were created to be soldiers, but we've become so much more. Partners, friends, family. This war has brought out the best in both our species." Ava nodded, scribbling notes. "And what about the future? Assuming we win this war, what place do you see for neo-dogs in peacetime society?" It was a question I'd pondered often in the quiet moments between battles. "I think we'll find our place, just as our ancestors did. Some of us might stay in the military or law enforcement. Others might become scientists, engineers, artists. The important thing is that we'll do it alongside our human counterparts, as equals." As the night wore on, I found myself on the bar's rooftop garden, gazing up at the stars. So much had changed since we first looked to the heavens and found war instead of friendship. Yet in facing that threat, we'd forged a bond between species that was stronger than anything we could have imagined. I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear Nova approach until she was beside me. "Credit for your thoughts, boss?" she asked, leaning on the railing next to me. I chuckled. "Just thinking about how far we've come, and how far we still have to go." Nova nodded, her eyes serious. "You know, before all this, I never gave much thought to dogs beyond the occasional pet. Now, I can't imagine going into battle without you by my side." I felt a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the drinks I'd consumed. "Likewise, Nova, we make a good team, don't we? Humans and dogs, just like the old days. Only now we're equals." "Partners," she agreed, raising her glass. "To the best damn team in the galaxy." As we clinked glasses, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. The Galactic Alliance had sought to destroy us, but instead, they had united us in ways we never thought possible. The next day, as we prepared to return to the constellation, I took one last look at the Earth we were leaving behind. It was a changed world, one where humans and neo-dogs stood side by side as partners and equals. It was a world worth fighting for. As we lifted off, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had seen what we were fighting for, the future we were trying to build. And I knew deep in my genetically enhanced bones, that it was a future worth any sacrifice. The stars awaited us, and with them, the next chapter in the incredible partnership between man and dog. Whatever the Galactic Alliance threw at us next, we would be ready. Together we were more than soldiers, more than partners. We were family. And family fights for each other, to the very end. The brief respite on Earth had rejuvenated us, but the war waited for no one. As we reassembled on the constellation, there was a palpable sense of anticipation in the air. Something big was coming. Colonel Vance confirmed our suspicions at the next briefing. The holodable flickered to life, displaying a vast swathe of contested space. "Ladies, gentlemen, and neo-dogs," Vance began, his gruff voice carrying a note of excitement I'd never heard before. "The time has come to take the fight to the enemy. We're launching Operation Avalanche, the largest coordinated assault in the history of Earth's military." Captain Hunter stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with determination. "The destruction of the Hive Nexus has left the Kryak in disarray. We're going to exploit that weakness and punch straight through their lines." The hologram zoomed in on a series of star systems. "Our objective is to reclaim these 7 systems and establish a permanent foothold in Galactic Alliance territory. This isn't just about pushing them back anymore. We're taking ground and holding it." I felt my tail start to wag involuntarily. After so long on the defensive, the thought of taking the fight to the enemy was exhilarating. Vance continued, "This operation will involve every ship, every soldier, and every neo-dog we can muster. Wolfborn, your team will be spearheading the assault on the Antares system. It's a key strategic location and home to a major Alliance shipyard. Take it out. And we cripple their ability to rebuild their fleet." As the briefing concluded, I gathered my team. The mood was a mix of excitement and nervous energy. "All right, Pack," I said, looking each of them in the eye. "This is what we've been training for. Everything we've been through has led to this moment. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for our future among the stars." Nova nodded, her face set with determination. "About time we showed those aliens what happens when you back humans and dogs into a corner." "Yeah," Cooper chimed in, grinning. "They're about to learn that our bite is way worse than our bark." Fang let out a low growl of approval, while Whiskers' whiskers twitched with anticipation. "Whatever happens out there," I continued, "we stick together. Human and neo-dog were family now, and family always has each other's backs." The journey to the Antares system was tense. Our fleet, the largest assemblage of Earth ships ever gathered, moved through space like a swarm of angry hornets. As we approached our target, the comms crackled to life with Admiral Harper's voice, addressing the entire fleet. "Soldiers of Earth, human and neo-dog alike, this is it. The moment we take back our destiny. Fight well, fight hard, and know that the hopes of our entire species go with you. Good hunting." As we dropped out of FTL on the edge of the Antares system, the scene that greeted us was one of chaos and beauty. The space around the shipyard blazed with weapons fire as our advance forces engaged the enemy. "All ships, commence attack pattern." Delta Captain Hunter's voice came through crisp and clear. "Wolfborn team, you have a go for insertion. May the stars watch over you." Our dropship rocketed towards the massive shipyard, weaving through the debris of destroyed vessels and streaks of energy weapons. I felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, my enhanced senses kicking into overdrive. "Remember the plan," I barked as we approached our insertion point. "Nova and Whiskers, you're on demo. Fang and Cooper, you've got our 6. I'll take point. We get in, we blow this place to kingdom come, and we get out. Simple." Cooper chuckled. "Simple," he says. "Just another walk in the park, right, boss?" Before I could retort, our ship shuddered violently. "We're hit," the pilot yelled. "Stabilizers are gone. Brace for impact." What followed was a blur of motion and sound. Our ship smashed through the outer hull of the shipyard, skidding to a halt in what looked like a massive construction bay. As the dust settled, I did a quick head count. We were battered, but alive. "Everyone okay?" I asked, shaking debris from my fur. A chorus of groans and affirmatives answered me. As we emerged from the wreckage, the scale of the shipyard became apparent. It was like a city in space, stretching as far as the eye could see. Well, Nova said, checking her weapons. So much for our stealth insertion. Adapt and overcome, I replied. Whiskers, can you access their systems? We need to find the central power core. Whiskers' paws flew over his portable console. I'm in, but their security is tough. Give me a minute. That minute felt like an eternity as we took up defensive positions, the sound of approaching Clarke forces growing louder. Got it, Whiskers exclaimed. The power core is 3 levels down and 2 kilometers east. I nodded. All right, Pack. Looks like we're doing this the hard way. Move out. What followed was the most intense urban combat I'd ever experienced, albeit in the strangest city imaginable. We fought our way through twisting corridors and vast assembly areas, each chamber bringing new challenges. In one massive hall, we found ourselves facing off against a squad of half-assembled combat drones. Cooper's explosives proved invaluable, turning the unfinished machines into shrapnel that we used as cover. You know, Cooper yelled over the din of battle, I'm starting to think the Galactic Alliance doesn't appreciate our redecorating efforts. Fang, using his massive frame to provide cover, let out a barking laugh. Maybe we should leave them a strongly worded note, along with the explosives. Even in the heat of battle, I felt a surge of pride. My team, human and neo-dog alike, worked in perfect synchronization. We'd come so far from our early days of uncertain partnership. As we neared the power core, resistance stiffened. The Clarke, realizing our goal, threw everything they had at us. In a narrow corridor, we found ourselves pinned down by heavy weapon fire. We're running out of time, Nova shouted, her stealth suit sparking from a near miss. The fleet can't hold them off forever. I gritted my teeth, my mind racing for a solution. Then I saw it, a maintenance shaft, barely large enough for a human to crawl through. Nova, I barked, that shaft should lead behind their lines. Think you can work your magic? She grinned, already moving towards the opening. On it, boss. Give me 2 minutes, then get ready to run. Those 2 minutes were some of the longest of my life. We held our position, Fang's bulk and my enhanced reflexes barely keeping the enemy at bay. Then suddenly the Clarke fire slackened, followed by sounds of confusion and panic. That's our cue, I growled. Move. We burst from cover, charging down the corridor. The scene that greeted us was one of chaos. Nova had used her stealth tech to sow confusion among the enemy, turning their own defenses against them. With the path clear, we finally reached the power core, a massive, pulsating structure that hummed with barely contained energy. Whiskers, Cooper, you're up, I said. Make it count. As they worked to plant the charges, Fang, Nova, and I held off the regrouping Clarke forces. The battle was fierce, but we had come too far to fail now. Charges set, Cooper called out. We've got 5 minutes before this whole place becomes the galaxy's biggest firecracker. Time to go, I barked. Nova, find us a way out of here. Our mad dash to escape was a blur of adrenaline and desperation. Nova's quick thinking led us to a small hangar where we commandeered an alien shuttle. As Whiskers worked to decipher the controls, I looked back at the shipyard that had been our battlefield. Just as we cleared the outer docks, the charges detonated. The explosion was spectacular, rippling through the massive structure and tearing it apart from the inside. The shockwave buffeted our stolen ship, but Whisker's skillful piloting kept us intact. As we rejoined the Earth fleet, cheers erupted over the comm channels. The destruction of the shipyard had turned the tide of the battle. All across the system, Galactic Alliance forces were in retreat. Admiral Harper's voice, filled with fierce pride, addressed the fleet. Well done, all of you. The Antares system is ours. Let the Galactic Alliance tremble, for today they have felt the true might of Earth, and her children, human and neo-dog alike. As our battered team made its way back to the constellation, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. We had struck a decisive blow, one that would resonate throughout the galaxy. The tide of war had truly turned. Looking at my team, Nova's tired but triumphant smile, Cooper's excited chattering, Fang's steady presence, and Whisker's quiet pride, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Humans and neo-dogs, two species united in a bond stronger than blood. The Galactic Alliance had sought to extinguish us. Instead, they had forged us into something greater than they could have ever imagined. And now, the stars themselves would bear witness to what we could achieve together. The success of Operation Avalanche had changed the face of the war. Earth's forces, once on the defensive, were now pushing deep into Galactic Alliance territory. Victory, which had once seemed like a distant dream, was now a tangible possibility. But with this shift came new challenges, both tactical and moral. I stood in the constellation's observation deck, staring out at the unfamiliar stars of a newly conquered system. The reflection of a familiar face appeared in the glass beside me, Dr. Elena Rett, the scientist responsible for the Neo-Dog program. "Credit for your thoughts," Rex, she asked, her voice tinged with concern. I sighed, my tail drooping slightly, just thinking about how far we've come, and wondering where we're going. Elena nodded, understanding in her eyes. "The burden of creation," she mused. "I've been grappling with similar thoughts." Before I could respond, the ship's AI announced an incoming transmission from Earth High Command. We made our way to the war room, where Colonel Vance, Captain Hunter, and the rest of my team were already assembled. The holographic figure of Fleet Admiral Takashi materialized above the table. His face was grim. "I'll cut to the chase," he began. "Our intelligence services have uncovered plans for a superweapon being developed by the Galactic Alliance. If completed, it could turn the tide of the war back in their favor." Images flashed above the table: schematics, intercepted communications, surveillance footage. My enhanced brain processed it all rapidly, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "The weapon appears to target specific genetic markers," Takashi continued. "It could potentially wipe out all life on Earth while leaving the planet itself intact for colonization." A heavy silence fell over the room. The implications were staggering. "Your mission," Takashi said, his voice hard, "is to infiltrate the research facility where this weapon is being developed and destroy it at all costs. But there's a complication." More images appeared and my blood ran cold. The facility was staffed not just by various alien species, but by what appeared to be humans and canines. "We believe these are prisoners of war," Takashi explained, "forced to work on the project. Many of them have been there for years, possibly indoctrinated or coerced." I felt my hackles rise. "Are you saying we might have to?" I couldn't finish the sentence. Takashi's face was a mask of stone. "I'm saying that the fate of our entire species is at stake. You have full autonomy on how to handle the situation on the ground, but the facility and the weapon must be destroyed, by any means necessary." As the transmission ended, the room erupted into heated discussion. I looked at my team, seeing the conflict in their eyes that I felt in my own heart. Nova was the first to speak up. "We can't just abandon those prisoners. There has to be a way to save them." "But if we risk the mission to save them, and that weapon gets completed, billions will die," Fang countered, his usual stoicism cracking. Cooper, for once, wasn't joking. "There's got to be a third option." "There's always a third option, right?" I turned to Dr. Rett, hoping for some scientific insight that could solve our dilemma, but the anguish on her face told me she was as torn as the rest of us. "I created you to save humanity," she said softly, "but I never wanted it to be at the cost of your humanity or your caninity, if you will." As the arguments continued, I found myself slipping out of the war room. My paws carried me through the ship almost on autopilot until I found myself in a small, rarely used cargo hold. It was here, in the quiet, that the full weight of our situation hit me. We had been created for war, trained to make the hard decisions. But this felt different. We weren't just soldiers anymore. We were the products of the very kind of genetic manipulation that this superweapon threatened to weaponize on a global scale. I thought back to our early days, to the stories of the first generations of neo-dogs who had gone feral or insane. How different were we, really, from those failed experiments? And if we were willing to sacrifice innocent lives for the greater good, even reluctantly, Did that make us the monsters that our enemies believed us to be? A soft whine broke me from my thoughts. Shadow had followed me, his eyes full of understanding. "Heavy thoughts, old friend?" he asked, settling down beside me. I nodded, grateful for his presence. "I keep thinking about what Dr. Rhett said when we first deployed, about how we were more than just soldiers, partners, friends, family. But what does that mean when we're faced with choices like this?" Shadow was quiet for a long moment. "You know," he finally said, "I've been reading a lot of human philosophy lately, trying to understand our place in all this." I couldn't help but chuckle. "Find any answers?" "Not really," he admitted. "But I did find some interesting questions, like what makes us who we are? Is it our genes, our training, our choices?" I pondered this. "And what do you think?" Shadow's tail swished thoughtfully. I think it's all of those things, and none of them. We're not just our genetic code, Rex. We're not just living weapons. We're individuals with the power to choose who we want to be." His words struck a chord in me, even if those choices go against our training, against what we were created for. Especially then, Shadow said firmly, "That's what makes us more than just experiments or tools. It's what makes us, well, human, or neo-dog, I suppose." We sat in companionable silence for a while, each lost in our own thoughts. Finally, I stood, feeling a new resolve settling over me. "We need to find a way to complete the mission and save those prisoners," I said. "Not because it's tactically sound or because it's what we were ordered to do, but because it's the right thing to do. It's what makes us who we are." Shadow nodded, rising to his feet. "And if we can't find a way?" I met his gaze steadily. "Then we make one." As we made our way back to the war room, I felt a strange sense of peace. The mission ahead would be the most challenging we'd ever faced, not just tactically but morally. But I knew now that it wasn't just Earth we were fighting for. It was for the very idea of what it meant to be human or neo-dog. We were more than the sum of our genes or our training. We were individuals with the power to choose, to defy expectations, to be better than what we were created to be. And in making those choices, we would define not just the outcome of this war, but the future of our two species. As we rejoined our team, I saw the same resolve in their eyes that I felt in my heart. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, guided not just by our training or our orders, but by our conscience. The Galactic Alliance had sought to destroy us. In doing so, they had forced us to confront the very essence of who we were. And in that crucible, we would forge a new identity, not just as soldiers, but as sentient beings fighting for the right to determine our own destiny. As we began to plan our most daring mission yet, I knew that whatever the outcome, we would face it as what we truly were, not just man's best friend, but man's brother in arms, equal partners in the greatest adventure our species had ever undertaken. The stars awaited, and with them, the true test of what it meant to be human or neo-dog in a universe that had tried to deny us that very right. The tension on the constellation was palpable as we made our final approach to the Galactic Alliance research facility. This mission would determine not just the outcome of the war, but the very future of Earth and all its inhabitants, human and neo-dog alike. I stood in the hangar bay, surrounded by my team. We had been through so much together, and now we faced our greatest challenge yet. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but looking at their determined faces, human and neo-dog, I knew we were ready. "All right, Pack," I began, my voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We all know what's at stake here. But I want to remind you of something important. We're more than just soldiers. We're more than our training or our genes. We're individuals with the power to choose, to do what's right." Nova nodded, her eyes fierce. "We're going to stop that weapon and save those prisoners. Anything less is unacceptable." "Damn straight," Cooper chimed in, his usual joviality tempered by determination. "We didn't come this far to start taking the easy way out now." Fang let out a low growl of agreement, while Whisker's whiskers twitched with nervous energy. "Whatever happens in there," I continued, "we stick together. Human and neo-dog, we're family now. And family always has each other's backs." As we boarded our stealth shuttle, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Dr. Rhett. "Rex," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. All of you. You've become so much more than I ever dreamed possible." I leaned into her touch, allowing myself this moment of vulnerability. "We couldn't have done it without you, Doc. You gave us life, but you also gave us choice. That's a gift we'll never forget." The journey to the facility was tense and silent. As we approached, the true scale of our task became apparent. The research station was a massive structure, bristling with defenses and surrounded by a fleet of Galactic Alliance warships. "Well," Cooper muttered, "they certainly don't believe in subtlety, do they?" "Cut the chatter," I growled, but there was no real heat in it. I understood the need to ease the tension. "Whiskers, what have we got?" Our tech expert's paws flew over his console. "I'm detecting multiple layers of shielding, heavy weapons emplacements, and, wait, there's a weak spot in their sensor grid. If we time it just right, we might be able to slip through." I nodded. "Do it." What followed was the most nerve-wracking approach of my life. Our shuttle threaded the needle between sensor sweeps, using the cover of debris and the station's own energy emissions to mask our presence. By the time we docked with a little used maintenance airlock, I think we were all holding our breath. "We're in," Nova whispered, almost in disbelief. "Now comes the hard part." As we made our way through the twisting corridors of the station, the enormity of our task settled over us. We weren't just here to destroy a weapon, we were here to save lives, to prove that we were more than the weapons we had been created to be. Our first major obstacle came in the form of a security checkpoint. As we took cover, assessing the situation, I caught a scent that made my fur stand on end. Among the alien guards were several augmented canines earlier, less stable versions of neo-dogs. "Looks like we're not the only ones who had the idea to enhance man's best friend," Fang growled softly. I nodded grimly. "But we're the ones who got it right. Remember, those canines might not have the same control we do. Be careful." What followed was a tense battle of wits and reflexes. Nova's stealth tech allowed her to flank the guards, while Cooper's precisely placed explosives created the perfect distractions. Fang and I engaged the augmented canines directly, our advanced training giving us the edge over our more feral counterparts. As the last guard fell, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness for the augmented canines. They were a reminder of what we might have become without the care and ethical considerations that had gone into our creation. "Whiskers, get us a route to the main lab," I barked, pushing aside my emotions. We had a mission to complete. As we delved deeper into the facility, we encountered pockets of resistance, but our teamwork and the element of surprise kept us moving forward. Finally, we reached the central laboratory complex. The scene that greeted us was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. The superweapon dominated the center of the room, a massive device pulsing with ominous energy. Around it, human and canine prisoners worked alongside alien scientists, their movements mechanical and their eyes vacant. "They've been mind-controlled," Whiskers whispered, his sensors scanning the room. "Some kind of neural implant. It's tied into the station's main computer." I felt a growl building in my throat. This was a perversion of everything we stood for, the bond between human and canine twisted into a tool of destruction. "New plan," I said, my mind racing. "Whiskers, you and Cooper focus on disabling that weapon. Nova, see if you can hack into the main computer and free those prisoners. Fang, you're with me. We'll keep the enemy off their backs." As we sprang into action, all hell broke loose. Alarms blared, and waves of Galactic Alliance forces poured into the lab. Fang and I became a whirlwind of fur and fury, our enhanced abilities pushed to their limits as we held the line. Through it all, I caught glimpses of our team's progress. Cooper's face set in grim concentration as he worked to disarm the superweapon. Whiskers' paws flying over alien consoles, trying to unravel the weapon's operating system. Nova, her stealth suit flickering as she moved from terminal to terminal, working to free the prisoners' minds. But we were outnumbered and outgunned. Just as it seemed we might be overwhelmed, a familiar voice crackled over our comms. "Cavalry's here," Wolfborn came Shadow's growl. "Hope you left some fun for us." Through the lab's viewports, I saw Earth ships engaging the Galactic Alliance fleet. Reinforcements had arrived, turning the tide of the space battle outside. With renewed vigor, we pushed forward. As Nova succeeded in freeing the prisoners, many of them joined our fight, turning on their former captors with a vengeance. Just when victory seemed within our grasp, disaster struck. A stray shot hit a critical component of the superweapon, starting a chain reaction. "It's going to detonate," Whiskers yelled. "The blast will take out half the sector." The time seemed to slow. In that moment, I saw everything with crystal clarity. The freed prisoners, human and canine, fighting alongside us. My team pushing themselves beyond their limits. The stars beyond the viewport, silent witnesses to our struggle. I knew what I had to do. "Everyone, get to the evacuation pods," I barked. "I'll stay behind and manually contain the reaction." "Like hell you will," Nova shot back. "We started this together, we'll finish it together." One by one, my team, my family refused to leave. Even as the lab began to shake itself apart around us, we stood firm. Together we worked frantically to contain the meltdown. Cooper and Whiskers rerouted power systems. Nova coordinated the evacuation of the prisoners, while Fang and I physically held failing components together through sheer strength and willpower. As radiation levels rose and systems failed around us, I felt a strange sense of peace. This was what we were meant for, not just to fight, but to protect, to save lives, no matter the cost. In the final moments, as we gathered around the pulsing core of the weapon, I looked at my team, human and neo-dog alike. No words were needed. We were beyond that now. As the energy reached critical levels, we poured everything we had into containing it. Our bodies, enhanced beyond normal limits, strained against the impossible force. In that moment, we were more than individuals. We were the embodiment of the bond between human and canine, a partnership that had spanned millennia and now reached to the stars. A blinding light engulfed us, and then darkness. When I came to, I was surprised to find myself alive. We all were, battered and radiation-scarred, but alive. Somehow our combined efforts had contained the bulk of the explosion. As Earth forces secured the station and medical teams rushed in, I looked at my team with a mixture of pride and awe. We had done the impossible. We had faced our greatest challenge and emerged victorious, not just as soldiers, but as sentient beings fighting for a cause greater than ourselves. As we were led to the medical bay, I caught sight of our reflection in a broken view screen. Humans and neo-dogs, standing side by side, indistinguishable in our unity of purpose. We had set out to save Earth, but in the process we had redefined what it meant to be human and what it meant to be a dog. We were no longer just man's best friend. We were partners, equals, family. The war wasn't over, but in that moment, I knew we had won something far more important than any military victory. We had proven that the bond between human and canine was stronger than any force in the universe. As the medical team fussed over us, I felt a deep sense of contentment. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Human and neo-dog, united in a partnership that now spanned the stars. The Galactic Alliance had sought to destroy us. Instead, they had forged us into something greater than anyone could have imagined. And now, the entire universe would bear witness to what humans and dogs could achieve together. Every dog might have its day, but together we had claimed our place among the stars. Our day was just beginning, and it promised to be a long and glorious one indeed. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.